Hey there. So glad that you're with us today. My name is Tim Anderson. I'm the youth pastor here at Cascade Covenant Church. And my coworker, Pastor Angela, our children's pastor, she and I have teamed up with one of our friends, Marci, to share a little bit about social, emotional, and mental health resources. So we're going to have just a brief interview talking through a few different key areas, and hopefully your family finds this helpful as you navigate through the quarantine. We really desire for our parents, our families, and our kids of all ages to be healthy. And so this is an area that we feel like we can kind of help contribute some positive things to this conversation. So we're just so glad you're here today. Pastor Angela, would you mind introducing Marci to us?
I'd love to. Marci and I go back a long ways, and personally, we've been friends, and she's provided a lot of social and emotional support to me along the years and along the way. We've shared a lot of laughs and a lot of tears, but more than that, she's also my go-to person because of her professional job. And whenever I need some good advice about direction and how to help my kids or my family go through something, she is the one to ask. So I'm so thankful that you could be here and share your expertise with us, Marci. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're working?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Marci Nicholson, and I am the school psychologist at Snoqualmie Elementary School. I've been at Snoqualmie Elementary School for 19 years. Prior to that, I worked at Seattle Children's Hospital in their psychiatric unit, and prior to that, I was in a specialty program in the Lake Washington School District. But clearly my passion is working with children and their families and just partnering with them to help families be their best selves and get through tricky circumstances that life throws at all of us, and something I really feel a lot of passion about.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad that you're here today. We're just going to dive into our first question here. So this is just a basic kind of what are some resources that people can put in their tool bag conversation? Mm-hmm. And so the first question is this: what are some basic things either that kids need to hear mm-hmm. right now, or so let's start with that. What are some basic things that what are some basic messages kids need to hear in this time?
Sure. So I think that one of the biggest things that kids, I think there's things that they need to hear, and I think there's things that they need to feel. And the things that they need to hear is that everything is okay, because, developmentally, like our preschoolers, for instance, they may not be able to articulate their feelings, but they know that something's up because they aren't going to preschool anymore, or mom and dad are home from work all the time, and just the schedule is all mixed up. And so with that, they just need to, have a lot of reassurance that everything is okay. And sometimes very young children are unable to find the words to articulate kind of what they're feeling. But as an adult, we can look at them and see what that might be, and to help them put some names to the way that they're feeling, validate their feelings so that they feel like they've been heard, and really engage with them, assure them that everything's okay. And just that reassurance is going to be really important for those very young children. Same goes for your elementary age kids, but they may be a little bit more in tune with, if you have the TV on, for instance, they may be hearing statistics and death and scary words, illness, and not knowing how they, that kind of applies to their world, being very concrete. They don't know necessarily that COVID is much different than a cold or a flu or, anything else. I can give a really quick example that when we were still in school, I had 3 little girls who were second grade-ish come into my office, and they just had this 3 little girls that I knew pretty well, and they just had a really concerned look on their face, and they had determined between the 3 of them who was going to die first, because this one was oldest, and this one was in the middle, and this one was youngest of their friends. And all they were hearing was on the news is that this was really impacting oldest people. But in their perspective, oldest was 9, 8.5, and 8, or do you know what I mean? Like, right. That's how they were processing that information. Yeah, so check out kind of, if you're hearing some funky things from your kids, kind of check out what's their source of information, and kind of help them, kind of see what the realistic piece of that is in a very age appropriate way. And then middle school and high school kids, really what they're kind of needing to hear is that the way that they're feeling is very normal, and that all kids are feeling this way. And for them, really, it's a social thing and it's a schedule thing. And their lives have all been turned upside down. Kind of depending where they are in the middle school process or in the high school process, they're missing out on a lot of things that they've been looking forward to for years and years, whether it's, a high school kid that's looking forward to, prom and graduation and, all of those kind of things. Or if it's a middle schooler that's, looking forward to that transition to high school, it's just all of that's been really turned upside down for them. And so they really need to hear that, it may not look how we expected it to happen, but everything's going to be okay and this will all work out. So, yeah.
So Marci, you said, I love this, that preschoolers need to hear that everything's going to be okay. And you said to give words to maybe their feelings. So as the parent, if they're saying, why can't I go to Target, or why can't I, go get the goofy special at my favorite restaurant?
Right.
As a parent, you would say, it's upsetting that we can't do the things that we used to do, right? So that's what you mean by giving words to that, meaning it?
Yeah, or even say that you look like, if they're, you have your child that's really melting down over something that they might not have in the past, and say, you look so sad, or you look so frustrated. That looks like it makes you really angry to think about that, or not being able to do that. But put those very specific feelings, names to what it looks like that they're feeling. They might be like, no, I'm not, whatever it is that you've said, I'm this. But it helps them put words to kind of what they're feeling about, about whatever the situation is.
And then I just want to ask you, what did you tell those 3 little girls and second graders that came to you? How did you respond to them?
Yeah, so I actually said, that sounds so scary. I bet those are really scary things to hear, but can I tell you what they really mean by oldest? And so I explained to them kind of what that meant, which is also a tricky thing, because then, again, being very concrete, they immediately think, my grandma, my grandpa, my aunt, someone like that. And so trying to keep it into perspective without giving them like a dissertation on COVID or any of these other things, that kind of fall into this, but kind of putting it into perspective that it's not second graders that they're really talking about when they're talking about that it's really, kind of these certain populations of people, and just helping them process through that. And it might be their grandma. Maybe they'll be like, gosh, that sounds just like my grandma, or just like my grandpa, or something like that, and helping them process through that. And if need be, in my role, connecting with the parent, then to just be like, hey, I'm hearing this from your child at school, just a heads up about that, which may also help them. Sometimes, like I'm guilty of this myself. I have the TV on as background noise sometimes, and it's just on a lot. And that was one of the changes that I had to make to really structure the amount of time that I was letting the TV be on and subjecting myself to just this constant barrage of information about COVID, because it's really not a lot of good news, right? And especially in the beginning. And this is just, I hate to use this word because I feel like it's being used too much, but it was unprecedented. We didn't know where this was going. We didn't know what to expect. And so it was just kind of a play-by-play of what was happening in the moment. And that our kids are being exposed to that as well. And they have fewer coping and processing skills than we do. And so, they're taking it kind of at face value and are not sure what to do with that.
Well, and it's certainly hard to tell them everything's going to be okay and get that message across when you have something in the background that's saying that the sky is falling.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that the part, because we essentially know that like eventually things will be okay, but okay may look different than life is right now, for sure, right? But to assure them that I'm here to take care of you, and that, to really emphasize your kids to come to me if you're worried about something. They may not be able to even use words. It may mean that they need more like sitting close to you, or that together time, or something like that. It may mean that they need to feel more reassured, like in a physical sense, more hugs, more snuggling, more just physical reassurance, because sometimes words just don't kind of fill that gap that they're needing.
That's really good. What are some different things that kids need to do right now, right? We talked about things that kids, I like that, because it's not just things that kids need to hear, but it's really what kids need to feel. And so with little ones, you know, we have a 3-year-old and she's really disappointed that she can't go to Target right now, right? Like she already loves Target. We're sunk at this point. But we do a lot of hugs and bringing her in. But middle schoolers, high schoolers, you know, early college age kids, like I feel like that there's a different need there. Yeah. And maybe some of that comforting comes from routines or habits or something like that. So what are some, and even for preschool and elementary, what are some good rhythms or routines that people can get involved in?
Yeah. So I think that when you talked about kind of routines, I think that is one of the most critical things. This just so unsettling because, you know, like think about times when we've been like out of school or out of work or something for an extended period of time. It's usually around an event of some kind. So it might have been like a snow event or something where it's like snowing outside and we know there's an end to it, or it's summer break or something like that, where those events are usually attached to like certain feelings or certain permissions to like feel and do certain things. Where in this one, there's so many, it's almost like
variables.
They're like known variables, but with this one, there aren't. And so I think a schedule is super important. Setting like getting up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every day. And whether it's for, you know, very young children or, us as adults, that having like some point to our day to like work, go, whether, we're working or if it's for little kids, like what does my day hold? Like time is so open-ended to them, like they look at you in the morning and they're like, well, so what are we doing today? And so even making like a visual schedule for very young children, you can use pictures or you can use words if they're readers, but kind of what the day holds and make it really specific for them, that we're going to, for really little kids, it might be, we're going to eat breakfast, we're going to get dressed, like, and definitely get dressed. Everyone should be getting dressed. Everyone should be fixing their hair. Everyone should be having some normalcy to their day. I know there's a lot of really funny kind of memes and stuff on Instagram and Facebook about, just you put on your daytime pajamas and then you change into your nighttime pajamas. The days just kind of blend into each other. And a lot of that can blend itself really readily to depression when they're just, it feels a lot of hopelessness and a lot of like kind of no end to this situation. But if you put some structure into your day, activities that you to look forward to, eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner, that kind of helps with the whole eating situation. That's also kind of a deal with all of this. But then put some activities into the day that can include, some academic things if your kids are kind of in that academic age range. It could be, structured activities for little ones. So it's something that like you engage with them to do. Like maybe you guys are going to play Play-Doh for 15 minutes and keep it short and realistic too. I mean, how long under normal circumstances would you do an activity? Kind of stick with that. You don't want to like end up.
You don't have to be super mom or super dad.
No. In fact, of all times in the world, don't try to be super anything. Like just we're all making it through the day, right?
Yeah.
So no, don't look on Instagram. Do not look at Pinterest unless like you're really into that, and like compare yourself to the people who are posting there, because they do that. That's part of their world that they do that. And it can really, again, lend itself to feeling less about yourself, that you're not, doing all that you could do for your family or for yourself. So try to avoid those types of things unless that's really a normal out for you, a normal way that you de-stress or something, and that you can keep it in perspective too. I think that exercise is really an important thing to do. I mean, there's tons of research that talks about the brain chemistry that is related to exercise, and So that could mean for you just going for a walk with your family. It could mean throwing a ball outside. It could mean doing yard work, whatever, just like some physical activity. At my house, that we love to dance in the kitchen. And so that's kind of a fun thing for us to do. And we do it all together. So that's kind of a fun, but whatever works for your family. It doesn't have to be, like organized or anything like that. Just do what makes you happy. I think that's a really important thing.
So what I'm hearing you say is having some routine, right? So getting up, getting dressed, getting to bed at a reasonable time, your 3 meals and some activities throughout the day, having a schedule and writing it out so that there's some kind of visual map. There's some order to the days bleeding into one another. That's really good. And then, set realistic expectations. That's really good. I've thought about that a few times. And I realize that taking my daughter for a walk, does as much as, taking her to gymnastics class used to, right? We can't recreate gymnastics hour for her, but we can take her and have her run up and down the hill.
Do something a little different. I think another thing that's really important too is that our spaces don't change during the day. So our workspace, or for our kids, like maybe where they're doing their schoolwork, that space may be the same space where they're eating their meals, where they're like maybe watching TV or something, it's all in the same space. And so trying to change that up a little bit. So pick a space in your home where you're going to do your work. So if you're working, work there. If your kids are doing schoolwork, pick a space that's kind of their school and have them do their work there. And then when they're done with work, it's like they get to leave school and they go to this other part of your house, which is kind of like our world right now, right? And so then that's kind of, they're not at school anymore because they're not at school, that's over at wherever they're doing their work. I ran into a friend who said that it doesn't even feel like there's a weekend anymore because he does all of his work in his kitchen. So he works in the kitchen, and then when he's not at work, he's in the kitchen, his weekend's in the kitchen. And so it just feels like it's all the same thing. And so to really switch that up and be really,
intentional,
purposeful in the spaces of where you're doing things. So it's kind of like, that thing where you should only sleep in your bedroom, don't watch TV, don't eat and things like that in your bedroom, so that when you go to your bedroom, your brain says, oh, it's time to go to sleep. Make this space where it's your workspace. So your brain says, oh, I'm working here. When I go into the kitchen, oh, I'm cooking, I'm doing something with my family, I'm doing meals or something. When I'm in the living room, I'm relaxing. So it's not, you're not just blending one day and one space into the next, that there's a little bit of structure, even environmentally, with how you're spending your days.
That's really good.
Marci, some families have multiple students and children doing and all different ages, right? So we talk about preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school. There are some families that have a child in each of those camps.
Yes.
So how do they manage keeping their spaces conducive for learning, right? If you have 3 or 4 kids that all need to sit and do homework at the same time, and I know with teens, you don't necessarily want them in their room on their computers alone,
right.
But to do homework, there might be so much commotion because they have, little twin brothers that are 5 years old that are creating so much ruckus. So how do families manage that well?
Well, I think that you would have to look at like what's working best for your family. And that's always going to be the kind of the key in everything, is what's working for your family. Because what works for one family isn't necessarily going to work for another family. So in that situation, if it did work for all of the older kids, like say sit at the kitchen table or something like that to do their work, then that's great. But if it's not working, then finding spaces that it does work for them. So maybe it is their bedroom. Under normal circumstances, would you want them to necessarily be doing their work in their bedroom if that didn't work for them? No, but these are unusual circumstances. And so you kind of have to be flexible with kind of rules that you would follow under normal circumstances. You have to find what works for you right now and not make yourself crazy over it. That goes along with like all of the information that's coming out from the schools about, I think they're now grading at the middle school and the high school level. If that's something that's really stressing your family out, communicate that with your children's teachers and kind of find out where's the line here, because I'm just having a really hard time managing being the teacher of a high school kid doing work that that I may not be very good at, or I don't have enough information to support them with, middle school, elementary school, communicate with their families, communicate with their teachers, to kind of find out what's the expectation, where's the line with that, and then do what's right for your family.
That is so good to hear. And it kind of is a segue to our next question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance, as a parent, enforcing good boundaries without risking or crossing over into relational damage? Because like you said, parents are wearing different hats. They're parents, they're teachers now, counselors, parents always are, but it's different now. And I liked that you said to sometimes maybe relax and be flexible with rules that you would have during a normal time. So can you just expand a little bit on that, about how to manage those boundaries and when and how to be flexible?
Yeah. So I think that as we went into this, we kind of had house rules in all of our homes that kind of worked fine when we were under normal circumstances, right? But now that we're all under one roof, we're spending a lot of time together. There's like little things. There's actually two parts to this question. There's like some little things that you normally could totally roll with that are now driving you crazy. So not because it's happening.
That's not happening at our house. That's
right?
not. What are you talking about?
Like say, like normally if someone in your house was like eating potato chips and they're really crunchy, and normally that's not something that you love to listen to, but you can roll with it. But right now that's making you crazy. And so there's kind of that level of stressor, and you don't want to like totally lose it over something like that. But we're now becoming more aware of kind of what our limits are as adults interacting with the other adults in our home as well as with our kids. So there's like a conversation you can have with the other adults in your home when the situation is not happening. So in like say the potato chip example, I wouldn't in that moment like totally lose it on that person because they're just eating chips. They're not, hopefully not doing it to annoy you on purpose. And so to communicate that to them like later, like maybe later that night or the next day or something, hey, yesterday when we were eating those chips, it was really crunchy, and normally, whatever, but it was really bothering me. And so, I wonder if you could not do that next time. Or you're in charge of yourself. If something is bugging you, you always have the option to get up and leave the room or something like that. Go do something until the chips are gone. But as far as with the kids, kind of a similar approach, that we're going to run into situations that we didn't realize were a problem, or they may not be a problem, it's just boundaries that we're having to set right now because of the circumstances. And again, I'll go back to that. Usually when we're out of school for long periods of time, it's again because of a break or snow, or there's something happening where, for example, that bedtimes might be able to be more flexible, for example. So right now, kids, if they're really needing to get up the next morning and kind of do school, and that importance of keeping a schedule and kind of not sleeping until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, which really messes your brain up too. And so you really don't want to go down that path. It mixes up sleep schedules and sleep habits and kind of your internal kind of chemistry and things that you don't want to be doing those kinds of things. But you don't want to hit that head on at 11 o'clock at night when you feel like you've told your child, 22 times, you need to go to bed, you need to go to bed, you need to go to bed, because that's when kind of that conflict starts happening. And so a really great thing to do, and this sounds idealistic, I think, but it doesn't have to be as formal as this is going to sound, but to have a family meeting. And so like say on like a Sunday afternoon or something, as you go into the week, talk about, kind of what the expectations are going to be for the week. And so that could be things like what time everyone's going to go, the kids, of course, are going to go to bed at night. And those can be different times. Of course, your preschooler is going to go to bed at an earlier time than your high schooler. And so being realistic with your different ages of kids, what time to get up in the morning, to what degree do you expect them to help with things around the house? And really helping with things around the house is a really good, healthy thing for all family members to be contributing to right now. So, chores of some kind. It could be emptying the dishwasher. It could be folding laundry. It could be helping make beds. It could be mowing the lawn. Whatever it is, it's really going to help your family out. But set all of these things up in that family meeting so that you're setting them up when emotions aren't running really high. It's just a really neutral time to kind of talk about these expectations for the family. And you can also get feedback from them during that time. And it really helps teach a really nice negotiating skill again, when there's not those really high emotions where, you're in the moment and you feel like you've said, brush your teeth 50 times, or the bed times have, gone by, and like those are when it's not productive to try to solve a problem in that moment. But during this family meeting time to kind of set those things up. And if it helps your family, also write down what those expectations are for the week, but you can pose it as like maybe goals, like family goals for the week, that we're going to go to bed at this time, get up at this time, so-and-so is going to do XYZ this week, so that it's in writing someplace and it helps remind them. And then it's not so much you nagging them about it. It's more like, well, we agreed upon these things. And so, what do you have going on today? And set those daily goals, set weekly goals. Again, put some purpose and kind of some structure into your week.
So where I see this falling apart for my family, Marci,
Yeah.
that we're night owls and we all stayed up super late. So when school was happening and my high schooler would say, stay up really late, I just got to a point where I'm like, well, you're the one who's going to be tired tomorrow because you have to get up for school, and, I'm going to bed.
Yes.
But I could see myself in this situation with staying at home the next day being very lenient, and we would very easily turn into the family where my kids were sleeping till 2. So in the moment, how do you handle that at bedtime? Are you still going to enforce no, you have to get up at 7 a.m. no matter what? You can stay up as you want, but you have to get up. That's harder at this time.
I think that you again have to look at like your family dynamics. And so if prior to all of this happening, if they were night owls, and I'm a night owl, and so I can really appreciate that piece of it. And then I also have to get up really early in the morning as an adult with little kids, that I have to do that. But you have to look at kind of what is your family dynamic. It's kind of like Thanksgiving when you have all the family together and there's, that one uncle or, that you're not going to change that person today. And so don't take this time of the pandemic to try to change your family dynamics at all. And if it's been working for your family prior to this, maybe it's not broken. Maybe it's okay, because you have to look at like, are they getting up? I mean, you also have to look at, why are we getting up at 7 a.m. necessarily? Like I do have to get up early because like I kind of still have to be to work by like 8 or 8:30. So I still have to get up early. But for the kids, I kind of expect my kids to be up somewhere between 8:30 and 9 right now, because my son's school starts emailing him in that time frame. But you're kind of scheduling out, having realistic expectations, I guess, and some rationale behind why you're expecting whatever it is that you're expecting. Not that we have to justify things to our kids necessarily, because, we have a reason to do it, but have a realistic and reasonable expectation, or expectation about why you're doing something, and kind of look at what you were doing prior to the pandemic to kind of guide how you're structuring things in your family now.
Yeah,
I think that is good.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to hop in there and say that phrase though. Don't use the pandemic, or don't try to change somebody during the pandemic.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's encouraging in many ways, because I think, there's enough pressure as it is, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just try to recap what you said there. In terms of so having, pick your battles, and not only pick them, but pick when you have them, right?
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
if it's between two adults, have that conversation outside of the event, right?
Yes.
Outside of whenever the any tempers might flare up.
Yes.
Communicate and set expectations early, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like a Sunday family meeting is when you talk
Mm-hmm.
about what the expectations are going to be for the week,
Mm-hmm.
at a time when people are calm and relatively collected,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then also, and then not really trying to change someone, not using the pandemic as the time where you're going to try to change someone. Like you wouldn't try to change your aunt or uncle on Thanksgiving.
No.
You could try, but
try.
it
Not
wouldn't
always
happen.
success, though. No.
I also really liked that you said to have a rationale, not that you need to justify everything to your kids, but when it comes to teenagers, it's been my experience that if I have a rationale behind it, that when I go into the conversation with them about why they need to stick to that boundary, it makes it so much of an easier conversation for me. Because if I don't know why that's boundary, I'm going to lose that.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it really helps with teenagers as they're starting to really formulate the whys of what they're doing too, to be able to talk through things. And it also opens up an opportunity for them to say kind of their side of like why they feel that what you're asking them to do is unrealistic or they don't want to do it or whatever it is, to hear them out on their side. And if any time there was a time to really listen to your teenagers, right now is a really important time to listen to your teenagers and kind of give them as much opportunity to express themselves as possible. This is a very sad time for our teenagers that are just missing out on, like Tim, I think you said, like kind of milestone activities. Our teenagers are really missing out on a lot of things. And so that's very hard. So just listening to our teenagers and giving them lots of choices, engaging with them, looking for opportunities for them to like give back to the community in a, kind of a low key kind of way, given that we can't really have a lot of interaction with people, but really engaging with those teenagers and helping them feel like they're part of the solution, part of what's going on, will be really helpful to those teenagers.
Throughout scripture, we see family dysfunction, and it can be a part of any family in varying ways and to varying degrees. And now that we're all home together, we're often without our coping tools, like you were talking about with the potato chips. You kind of have to rethink some of that. But beyond that, there may be significant challenges that some families are dealing with. What suggestions do you have, or any resources that you can recommend for us so we can cope with some things that maybe are a little bit extra?
Right. So I think that one of the most important things to remember that during this time of being together a lot, when we're outside of these times, usually there's a lot of time and space within a day where we're not necessarily around all of our family members and kind of all of those dynamics that come, with families. And we all have dynamics. Every single one of us have family dynamics. But one of the most important things to keep in mind that during this time of like all this like super togetherness is safety. And so I just have to start that by saying that if for some reason like you're with someone that you don't feel safe with, to definitely reach out to access help. And whether that's, whether Tim or Angela or Dan, or in really extreme situations, it could be like the police or something like that, to please feel like you have access to people that you can reach out to, and maybe you have a friend or someone like that. It's really important to know that you are safe, that your children are safe, whatever your circumstances are, to make sure that you are, that safety is just like a really big piece of it. As far as just like kind of more day in day out kind of dynamics, I think again a really big resource for kind of dealing with those dynamics is, again, that structure. And so the more structure that you have to your day, the more busy, and the more, not that we're running away from something with busyness, but structure definitely helps with add some normalcy to our day and some purpose. And so if we all kind of have like a schedule and everything that we're working on, it kind of limits that idle time where kind of bickering and some conflict can start to come up in ways that it wouldn't if we were all kind of doing, kind of spending our time in a different way than that.
So like, for example, if you were if you go to work, you're away from your family, right? And so those 8 hours a day or so that used to be built-in buffer space, that's gone, right? So it's really helping. So it's thinking through, okay, how do I structure in that time where I'm not just kind of, looking for something to do.
Right. And so I think that structure is still really important, even if like your job wasn't one where you can now do it at home. For instance, finding a way to structure your day, because I think that, when everyone is just kind of idle time, and I think that can really lend itself to conflicts happening, and everyone's kind of like, everyone's feelings are kind of like this heightened emotions. kind of problem solving kind of goes out the window. And so maybe identifying, again, doing it when you're not in the moment. So if you're in a situation where you feel like you would really need a resource of some kind, don't wait until you're in that moment to try to say, who can I call? Think about who your support system could be. It could be, your mom, or it could be a best friend. It could be, a coworker, whoever it is. Figure out who your support system could be and get their contact information, whether it's someone that you call, it's someone that you text, it's someone that you message on Facebook. Use your resources that you have available right now to be ready in case you're needing someone to talk to. Another part of that too, like Tim, when you were talking about like those 8 hours and how are you filling that time, to not spend all of that time, like we're social distancing, but that doesn't mean that we're housebound. And so, take that time, like if there's really a lot of big emotions happening, not to escape the situation, not to tell someone where you're going. You want to say where you're going, but just, I'm going to go to a drive to North Bend, or I'm going to drive to Issaquah, I'm going to, just go for a drive. Say where you're going so you're not worrying anyone, and then just get some time and space between you and the situation. If it's a small problem, that could be a good solution. Go for a walk. That could be something really good to do. But do something that I think that just having some time by ourselves is going to be a really important time through this. I've found that already in my my own life, that I sometimes, if I had to like run to the store or something, and when I came back, I take an extra, this sounds like a really long time, but like 10 or 15 minutes, just sitting in my car and being by myself, because I'm not by myself very much. I have my college daughter home. I have my 8th grader home. My husband's been working from home. And, you can go to like another space in your house, but I just feel like they always have access to you. And so if like I'm sitting in my car, my kids usually don't bug me if I'm in the car for some reason. And so find that space where you can go and just have some time by yourself, whether you're listening to a podcast or just listening to music, or you're reading something, or you're just scrolling through Facebook or something, to just have that downtime where nothing's being expected of you, and you can kind of de-stress and decompress from like everything else that's going on in your home and all this super together time.
I would imagine too that sorry, Angela.
Go ahead, Tim.
No, my bad. I just going to say, I would imagine that there's got to be some resources. You work with the school, right? Yeah. So are you, are there people that parents can reach out to if they need to? Are people from school, from the community still available for calls or texts or emails or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. So, I work with the preschool families in our district, and so I am always a resource. I really am glad to talk. I talk to lots of families from all different age groups, and so I'm always available, that families can reach me by email through the school district. Feel free to email me, and I can, if I don't know the answer, it's not an area of expertise for me, I'm always glad to connect you with someone else. Your building school counselor, if you have school age children, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, the school counselors are, we're all still working. It's all via email, meetings by Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And so you have access to them. Just email them. Easiest way to get a hold of school staff, and the school counselors are really happy to help families with this. And if they feel like it's a little bit bigger than something that they can really help your family with, they can also help connect you with resources in the community that can maybe be more of a family support. Another resource that you may have access to, if your employer, there's an employee assistance program, employees assistance program, and they are also, usually it's like 2 or 3 sessions over the phone, and then if it sounds like it's bigger than that, then they'll refer you to someone in your community too. So whether it's through an employer, usually that's not only the employee, but the employee's family can also access that. A school district, school counselor, myself, a lot of the school psychologists in every building in our district has at least one school psychologist. And so school psychologists are always also a great resource. And you just need to access them through, like, if you don't know them personally, you can always ask me because I know who they are in all the buildings. I can connect you that way. But if you just go to your building's website, usually it's listed on there, whoever the school counselor is, the school psychologist is, and reach out to them, and they can either help you or they can help connect you with someone who would be helpful to you.
I was just going to say, for teens, it was really
Yeah.
helpful to me as a parent when my kids were teens to have other people that came alongside them, other adults, whether it
Mhm.
was my sister or my friends,
Mhm.
and they knew. It was a conversation that I just had with them. If something terrible happened and you couldn't get a hold of me or didn't want to get a hold of me, who would
Yeah.
you feel safe asking to help you? And having that person identified was so helpful for me as a parent, just knowing, okay, my kid's going through something. This person is friends with them on social media. This person is connected to them through this way. And this person will tell me if I need to know something,
Right.
and help my kids know when they need to say something. And I say kids, I mean when they were teens. It was really valuable to have that.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And identifying that person ahead of time. Again, all of this is like kind of the what if, but it's planning ahead with that and talking to your kids, again, not when you're in the middle of the heat of a moment, but when things are calm. And what I find one of the best times to talk to teenagers in particular is when you're riding in the car and then you don't have to look at each other. Kids love, or the teenagers, they hate when you're having the eye-to-eye conversation. But if you're driving along and throw out a scenario and talk about that when it's just you're just driving to Target or something, and or wherever you're going these days, and identify that person and that's a safe person, and maybe they have a different idea of who a safe person is, and kind of have that conversation about whether or not you agree with that or whatnot. But to identify those people that they can go to, because it's sometimes not going to be you. Like, you'd want your kids to be able to come to you, but there's going to be situations where they feel they can't, and you don't want your kids to feel stuck. But you also want them to know that they have the safe person to go to talk about things if they need to.
Tim, Marci and I have a mutual friend, Beth, and she told Elizabeth when Elizabeth turned 18 that if Elizabeth was an adult now, and if she ever was in jail, that she could call Beth and Beth would bail her out. As a mother, that endeared Beth to me in the biggest way, because I want that. I want people in my kids' lives who are going to help them. And on the opposite side, I had somebody ask me once that if I ever saw their student speeding or doing something bad, that I would tattle on them. And I told that person, no, I will never tattle on your child. I will talk to your child and I will be there for your child, but I will not tattle on them.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between helping a mom know, oh, your kid was speeding. Well, okay, if they're going 5 miles over the speed limit, that's not going to ruin them forever. But, if they're feeling depressed, then, mom needs to know. And I wanted to ask you about depression, Marci.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about depression. What are signs that we need to look for in ourselves or in our family members? Like, maybe, because you said something about sleeping in or having a crazy sleep schedule lends itself to depression. So, I feel like depression can be like tendrils that kind of like grab hold of you in different ways without you really realizing it until it's actually sucking you down.
Right.
So how can you recognize some of those warning signs?
So probably when you think about depression, there's kind of more classic signs about just kind of loss of interest in things that you normally would be interested in. Maybe where you get up and you just don't see the point in something, like, why would I get dressed today? I'm just going to change my clothes to go to bed. And so, just kind of losing that feeling of losing hope, using coping mechanisms that wouldn't necessarily be healthy, whether that's turning to alcohol to kind of cope with the situation. It could be food. It could whether it's overeating or not eating enough and just not taking care of yourself, or just over or under indulging in anything. Feeling like you can't care for yourself, or if you have kids, that you're just not able to care for them. Sleeping all day, and not because you're tired or not because you don't feel good or something like that you just can't make yourself get out of bed. If you see any warning signs, and if there's a more comprehensive list if you look up on the internet, classic symptoms of depression, to kind of see if any of those are kind of, if you're struggling with those for a longer period of time, because if you look at any of them, like there's days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just not ready to get out of bed yet, which is different than I'm just not going to get out of bed today. But if you're struggling with those, you would definitely want to reach out to a medical professional. And most doctors' offices are definitely connecting with families either by phone. A lot of them are doing telemedicine, but reach out to a professional of some kind and talk to them about that and kind of see what they recommend. And usually they know your medical history a little bit better and might have something more specific for you.
That's really great. That's good. So as we've kind of talked about a lot of different things today, because it's really, there's just so much that needs to be paid attention to right now, because as families and parents, we're the first ones, right? We're on the front lines of whatever our family is going through, right? And so, especially as parents, it's really important to be thinking about social emotional health for our kids, but also we need to be thinking about our own too. And so everything, Marci, that you've shared today is just, I mean, again, like we could do 10 more of these and it still wouldn't be enough. But everything you shared today was so great. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And it's clear that you're an expert in these things. You're just so well spoken. So we appreciate just all of your advice and your guidance. So thanks for being all with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I told Tim, Marci, that I don't even think I've said anything to you about it, but your chalkboard sign, I don't know if your house in North Bend or Snoqualmie.
Yes, I'm in Snoqualmie. Mm-hmm.
And at your Chelan house, you have a chalkboard sign in your kitchen that says something about family. You can do hard things.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So when Tim told me that he wanted to do this, I'm like, well, here is why Marci's the perfect person.
That's kind of a mantra for us right now, because a lot of things are feel extra hard that normally don't feel hard. And kind of not super joking yesterday, Hallie asked, she wanted me to do something that wasn't hard. And she's like, it just feels so hard. And we had just watched the video, the World Vision video, and they talked about how the 6K is about how far families are walking to access water. And I said, that's hard, but right now the little things are feeling hard to us because we're so overwhelmed. I feel like I use the analogy of a glass of water, and we're all like this glass, like this is my smoothie cup, but like usually I feel like most of us are like right here, like this is like where we're like hitting, like getting too full of, like if you have the good and bad in there. And right now I feel like we're all hovering like up here, and it just takes that little drop of something that under normal circumstances we could totally manage, but right now that drop just makes it totally overflow into I can't do that. And so we use that saying a lot, that I know you can do hard things there. And sometimes it even takes a reminder of, remember when you did da da da, which was really hard, and it kind of puts into perspective, I can do that. And so that it says, beautiful family, you can do hard things.
Well, that's
a lot of hard things this year.
That is a great thing to end on. What is it? What did you say? Beautiful family, you can do hard things. I like that. That's good. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to be, continuing to check in with each other, right? Everybody, we're in this together. And so thank you so much for sharing what you have shared today. It means a lot to all of us. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.